I just want to welcome everybody here this morning. I hope we have a study together that we can apply in our Christian life. So, like I say, this is not a sermon, it's a study. We're going to talk together. Sean has a microphone out here somewhere. And when I ask you a question, just answer, talk. Because I want to make this an experience where we are learning together. The text is Matthew 10:16. It's on the screen. It says, "Behold, I am sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves." So the first question, Jesus is sending us to do what? Raise your hand. The rules are, you raise your hand, you get a microphone, and then you speak into it. But we got to start here with this question. He's sending us, or them, back then it was the disciples. We say that this applies to us. Sending us to do what? I want to see a hand. Okay, right there.
He's sending us out to preach the gospel and to bring others who don't know Jesus to Jesus. Share what we know, be an example of what we know of Jesus and how he's leading us in our life.
Wonderful. That's a perfect answer. That's what it is. He's sending us out there as individuals and also as a church, as a group, to do this work of preaching the gospel and telling people about Jesus and the better way of life. That's what this is about, and the better way of life. Now, in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, we have our customs and our ways of reaching out to people. Most of the time we do meetings where somebody is going to speak for 2 weeks, and then at the end of the meetings people are going to get baptized. I'm going to Indonesia at the end of October actually to do one of those meetings. Our Indonesian church is putting together this trip, but the pastors of the local churches over there, they're going to be studying with the people for a while, and then when I come, everybody's going to come together under one roof. I'm going to preach, the 7 days of preaching and Adventist beliefs, and then we're going to have a baptism. So that's one of the ways that we do this. But there is, and there is nothing wrong with this, except for the fact that sometimes what happens is we leave it to this system to do our work. You see, in other words, we as members don't do as much as we could do together to actually bring more people to the Lord and to help them follow Jesus. And you know what I'm talking about. So it's hard for us to know exactly how to preach the gospel. So some churches, they will say to their members, hey, we are just going to buy 2,000 copies of Steps to Christ or Great Controversy, and we're going to go out and pass that out. Again, that's all good, Or some churches are going to say, we're going to have a health seminar, cooking class, and then we're going to send mailers out. We had Kenneth Cox here. By the way, I don't know if you heard, he died. He passed away. Ken Cox did. Seventh-day Adventist evangelist. He came here when Milos started in his first year, and we had big meetings in the gym, and we sent out thousands of mailers all over the city. And by the way, somebody messed up the return address on those, so that was wasted, the whole thing, because we didn't get anything back. But we baptized a lot of people that year, I think 27, because we had already had a lot of Bible studies going on, and so this is how it goes. But where is the responsibility for me as a church member? What do I do? Do I just give out the books? Do I just invite people to church? I have a good friend, some of you know him. His name is Dave Kennedy. He's a pastor in one of our churches here in Denver area, and I talked to him just the other day. He has a wonderful church, a really good guy, and he says that they just had 10 baptisms. And I said, well, how did you do that? And he says, all we do is our members invite their friends to church, and then eventually those friends want to be baptized, and that's how we baptize 10 people. And I understand that. We do a lot of that too here in this church. You know, we do radio, we do television program. People come in, they visit, they go to church for a year or 2 or 3, and then they are baptized, and then we say, okay, we have done our work. I am here to tell you that I think we can do more as individuals, and we can do more as a group, as a church, as a team. But in order to do more, we got to understand the society. We have to understand the world in which we are living. There was a prophecy that Jesus made years and years and years ago. In Matthew 24:12, it says, "And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold." And then I also put up the version from Berean Study Bible. It says, "Because of the multiplication of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold." So one thing we need to understand about the society that I want us to discuss a little bit today is the fact that we are not living in a loving world. We just had a shooting in El Paso. Somebody went over there with a high-powered rifle and killed 20-some people, you see. And then next day, I think we had a shooting in Dayton, Ohio. And then, you know, you open the internet and you read about the mother who killed her own kids because she felt that they were interfering with her social life. And you read about a father who left his kids in the car. He was at work, you know, forgot about the kids for 8 hours. By the time he came out, they were dead, you see. And we have racial animosities, and we have immigration animosities, and we have church-to-church denominational animosities. You know, we like to blame the Catholics, and then we like to blame somebody else, and they like to blame us. And, you know, the world is not a loving world anymore. We have, Jesus clearly said, the love is going to disappear because of the multiplication, the increase of wickedness in this world. We have to understand that. So let me ask you this question. If the wickedness is increasing and the love is disappearing and the love is decreasing, then what would be a logical answer to the question, what does this world need? Somebody? Love, right? I mean, if the love is on the decrease and people don't love each other anymore, then wouldn't it be common sense that we need to give people more love? I think people need a little more love and a little less preaching. I think people need a little more love and a little less doctrine. I think people need a little more love and a little less dogma. I think people need a little more love and a little less rules over the top of their head. You know, I think people need a little more love and a little less this discord, and I don't like this, and I don't like that, and I don't like them, and I don't like this group, and I don't understand, you know. So, my question to us here this morning is, if you were to grade yourself on this scale of 1 to 10, how much love you have and how much love you're projecting to others. And you don't have to answer this one. But where would that be? Am I walking around and disliking people? Am I feeling anger towards this group and that group and everybody else? Do I come to church and feel anger to my brothers and sisters? Or do I try to live my life with love? Jesus, when he said to me, this was profound, that he said that the love is going to decrease and disappear. There is this whole study that's been going on lately in the world of psychology and science and whatnot on emotional intelligence. And we all understand what the regular IQ, tests and all of that stuff is. But emotional intelligence is relatively a new study. Personal emotional intelligence, the theory of that states that someone with high emotional intelligence is aware of emotions and able to regulate them. This is important if I'm going to relate to another human being. This is important if I'm going to try and love another human being like Jesus wants me to. So, very important. And this awareness and regulation are directed both inward to oneself and outward to others. So if I say to you, we need to preach the gospel, we need to tell people about Jesus, we need to lead people to Jesus, first thing that I want us to understand is we got to understand our own emotions, and we got to understand the emotions of those people that we are working with. So for example, you have somebody at work and you feel compelled to teach them about Jesus, and sometimes it doesn't work out the way you want it to because we fail to pay attention to what's going on in their emotional life. Maybe the man just received the news that his wife wants a divorce. Maybe she just received the news that she's going to be fired from this job that you're all together on. And I'm out there trying to teach them about Sabbath. Or I'm out there trying to invite them to come to my church. And I'm not paying attention to what's going on in their life. There was a preacher years ago, his name was John Maxwell, and he eventually became a writer of leadership books. But in one of his sermons, he would always say, and I never forgot that, he would always say, until people know that you care about them, they're not going to care about the message that you have for them. So you can have a greatest message in the world. Jesus loves you. Jesus is here to forgive your sins. Jesus is here to accept you. But if I'm doing that just as a duty, just because I think that this is my responsibility, without first caring for the individual that I'm talking to and that I'm dealing with, I'm going to lose them. They're not going to be interested in what I got to say. I want to tell you, if you and I want to do a better job of helping people in their choice to follow Jesus, we got to do a better job of understanding people a little bit better. We got to do a better job of understanding their emotions, and we got to be able to regulate our own emotions. Because people look at you and me, They look at what we say, listen to what we say, but then they also look at what we do. How do you handle your emotions? You get angry at the drop of a hat? Are you able to regulate that? Are you emotionally smart, or are you emotionally stupid? You see, are you somebody who just flies off, or are you somebody who knows how to control yourself? Personal competence. And now they're doing all kinds of studies in the leadership area for all of these CEOs and all of these people who are running these multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporations, and this is what they're coming up with. Personal competence comes from being aware of and regulation of one's own emotions. What kind of a person are you? Social competence is awareness and regulation of others' emotions. If I'm just trying to force my doctrinal beliefs down somebody's throat and I'm not paying attention to what they really need, which is maybe a kind word, which is maybe just somebody to talk to. You see, a lot of times we are putting the cart before the horse. You got to put the horse first. If you feel that your purpose in life is to serve Jesus and to tell others about Him, you got to do it right. We got to do it right. We got to care for people first. We got to care for people first. I'm going to give you an example, and then I'm going to ask for what you think. I go to a coffee shop, and I sit down and have a cup of coffee, look at my emails in the morning before I come to church. This is like 6 o'clock in the morning. And the guy comes in. He's a big guy, like Ricardo. Where are you, Ricardo? He's right there. A big guy. And he's older. He could be your dad. And he does not look very friendly. And he walks in, gets his coffee, drinks his coffee, out of the door. Doesn't talk to anybody. And I'm sitting there at the table, and, I talk to people. And one day, our paths crossed. He was coming this way, I was going this way, and I looked up at him and I said, "Hey, how you doing?" And he goes, "I'm okay." That was it, nothing else. And he went his way, I went my way. And next time I saw him, I was sitting there at the table, and the place was pretty crowded. And I said, "How you doing?" And he said, "I'm fine." And I said, "I'm Gordon, by the way." And he said, "I'm Jay." And I said, "Well, come on over and sit here." There is, the place was pretty busy. So we start chatting. Have you ever met somebody that looks kind of intimidating? You don't know if you really want to talk to them. So, so we start chatting. Turns out he is a retired biochemist. And he's done work at Rocky Flats. He's done work for Coors. He's done work for oil industry. He's done all his life, So we start talking about environment and foods and soil depletion and quality of foods and Fukushima disaster in Japan and how it is affecting our health. Next thing I know, I'm doing an interview with this guy for our radio show. We've been doing it together now for 2 or 3 years. Next thing I know is he's a Christian. He loves Jesus. Next thing I know, he prays. Next thing I know, he cries when he sees injustice and something happening bad to little kids and so on. And I have formed a friendship with this man. All because one day, out of the blue, I said, "Hey, how you doing?" That's all it took. I don't know how many people I have made friendships with over the years just because I said, "Hey, how you doing?" And then all of a sudden you realize that this person is a decent human being. And they love the Lord. And if they don't, if you respect them, they can hear you out. How much of that are we doing out there? How much of other people's emotions are we recognizing? We are not supposed to go out there and just throw books at people. We're supposed to go out there and get to know people. That's all you need to do, nothing else. So you don't need to learn how to do a Bible study. All you need to do is learn how to say, "Hey, how you doing?" Once you do that and you become somebody's friend, then when they are in trouble, when they have an issue, you can always say to them, hey, you know what? I'm praying for you. And one thing leads to another, and God opens the door for that person to hear then a whole message of Jesus. It's not a quick process. It takes a long time. It takes a lifetime of friendship sometimes. Are we willing to invest in other people? Are we willing to become friends with other people? I'm going to challenge you today. I'm going to tell you this. Find a person in your life that you know of, maybe at work in the neighborhood, somebody that you absolutely never, ever wanted to be a friends with. Somebody that you think is like, find somebody like that. And then when you get the occasion, just say, hey, how you doing? And take it from there. And take it from there. See where the Lord leads it. I sometimes pray in the morning to the Lord and I say, Lord, lead me to somebody. I don't care who. I don't care. You know, sometimes we, as human beings, we meet somebody and our first impression of them is, I don't like this person. I don't go by that. I said to the Lord, you bring into my life whoever you want to bring. Maybe somebody I totally hate. But you bring them, if you want to bring them into my life, I'm going to be their friend. So emotional intelligence, personal emotional intelligence. Now you go to this whole idea of group emotional intelligence. That's us. We are individuals out there, but in here we come today and we are a group. We are a team almost. A group's emotional intelligence comes from norms that support awareness and regulation of emotions within and outside the team. Do we understand each other? In this room right now, look at the variety of nationalities that you have. Look at the variety of colors of skin that you have. Look at the variety of languages that are spoken in this room right now. Look at the political persuasions that we have in this group right now. From the left to the right and the middle. All kinds of different people are right here, in here right now. We want to do this job together. We want to spread the gospel together. If we're going to do that, we need to understand each other. We need to be aware of each other. So what are the norms that support that awareness of each other? They fall into three categories. Interpersonal understanding is number one. Do we understand each other here in this building? Do you think we understand each other? I think we know each other superficially. That's my thinking. I think we know each other. Say hi. I think I understand a lot more because I get to hear what's going on in people's lives. You know, I get to hear when somebody gets the news that they have cancer. So I understand that a little better than somebody who never heard that. You know, unless the announcement is made in front of everybody, how are you going to know? Maybe I understand a little bit better because I hear the pain of somebody who is going through a divorce. Well, how can we as a church have better understanding of each other? How can we take time to share with each other where we are? If we're going to be a team, see, if you take any ball team out there, basketball, football, whatever, I don't care. They're all different. different color, different nationality, different language, different political persuasion, different religion. But once they are on that field, what they do? They try to make each other look better, right? And they try to win, and they work together. So here we are. I'm from Croatia. We got people here from Indonesia, China, South America, Africa. You name it. Everybody's here. We got people next door right now today. Our Spanish church is preaching. We got the Indonesian church over there. We got the international church in the school. You know, all of these people coming together for one purpose. To tell others about Jesus. To tell others about Jesus. So we're all on the same team. We all want to be effective together. I want to ask you a question. If you were to, and I'm going to ask for an answer, so whoever has the mic. If you were to grade this church on its effectiveness, how we all as a team, how are we doing in spreading the message of Jesus? He says, I send you out there. How are we doing? If you were to grade it from F to A being the highest, just like in high school, how would you grade it? And then after you tell me, I'm going to tell you how our early service graded it. But I want to hear from you. What do you think? What kind of a job are we doing in terms of... And think about us as individuals. Think about what we are doing as a church, you know. We're doing a lot of things as a church. For example, you know, me and Milos, we are hands-on radio and TV. Sue is hands-on with the Pathfinders. We got teachers who are hands-on with the kids. We got people who do the music. They're hands-on on that. I'm not hands-on on everything, you know. I mean, we got people in here, right, who go out there. Sandy, you were saying your sister, the one that's sitting right next to you there, how she's knitting these hats for people. And so we are, you know, hands-on out there in your work, in your neighborhood. How do you think we are doing as a group? A to F. I want to get a letter. Is it a F, D, C, B, or an A? Microphone is right there. Somebody give me a hand and then explain why you think that. We're talking openly. We're getting to know each other. We have one hand up here. Young person.
Hello.
Hello.
I think, happy Sabbath, everybody. I think that we're a B. I think that we do have programs out there to do outreach and to reach other people. I know people here who have actually been talking to their friends, talking to their family, talking to coworkers. But I say also B because there's always room for improvement. Mm-hmm. And I know that the Lord can do so much more with us. And so that is my personal opinion.
So you have a positive outlook for the future. The Lord can do more through us. Okay. Is there anybody else? So that was a B. Do we have a C? Do we have an A? Going once? Anybody else has a thought on this? And if you don't want to grade it, but you want to add something to this conversation, I'd like to hear it. What do you guys think? Okay, I knew I had a premonition. I knew Richard was going to say something. Man, I'm good.
Well, I was waiting for others to give it a shot, but the whole problem is, what's the scale relative to? Because it's going to be relative to some level of expectation. Mm-hmm. So my grade scale is relative to, say, the early church, and there I'd give us something like a D. I get Laura's idea of a B. I'm not violently opposed to that, but I just think that that's probably relative to most churches today, and I think we are better off than most churches today. But relative to what I think the Lord wants to do with the church, and what he wants to do with us particularly, I think the disparity is much huger than from, say, a B to an A. Maybe a D minus would be more like it.
Well,
So I think we're way below the curve in terms
we're going
of
to
the
average all
early
of this
church.
out. D minus and a B, I think, ends up being a C plus.
Yeah, no, we're not that high.
But before you give up the mic, you said something there that caught my ear, and that is compared, I think you said compared or in light of what the Lord wants to do through us. Can
Yeah,
you just
because-
elaborate? What do you think the Lord wants to do through this particular church? I'm just curious about your personal opinion.
Well, if you look at the early Christian church, there was a level of urgency that we just don't have. There was a commitment to this is the absolute top priority in my life. Not to my job, not to football, not to weekend barbecues, but literally every decision in life revolved around how can I be more effective at reaching this person, that person, the other person. Their meetings together revolved around training sessions. It wasn't just we sit there and listen to some guy preach at us. It was training.
Just
in-
what we are doing today.
Yes. So, but even more in depth. I mean,
Right.
these guys were studying the Old Testament and making the connections with all those old prophecies and all that old symbology to the reality of Christ. And so there was a depth of understanding and a commitment to rigorous understanding that we just don't have today. Our level of study is incredibly superficial. We don't have the depth of personal understanding, personal commitment, urgency that the early church had. And so you see the early church literally spreading like wildfire in a matter of just a few years. And we don't have that.
Potential? What about potential?
Oh, certainly. But, then you get into doctrinal issues like the latter rain and the power of the Holy Spirit and so forth. And I don't want to get off on that whole tangent, but, you're asking for a grade, and I think the disparity between where we are and the
Okay.
power of the early church is just a vast disparity.
See, what we are doing right now, we are working on the interpersonal relationships. We are understanding Laura, we are understanding Richard, we are understanding each other as we bring up some of these points, And I think as a church, we ought to be engaged in doing that more. Thank you, Richard. Who else had a hand? I thought I saw another hand. So we have a B and a what did you say, Richard? D minus. Okay. How many hands for a B? And how many hands for a D minus? I think, Richard, you've been outvoted. And then we have people who are neutral because they don't want to offend either one of you. So,
Well, what I was going to say is I liked what he said compared to what, because really, what are we comparing this to? And anyway, the person who really will grade the church and what the church is doing is God. We can't say what the grade is because there may be a small thing that this church does, and it may be small to us, but to God it might have been a big, big thing. So I think the grading system can't work for us.
okay. And that's legitimate too. Zach's little girl was here this morning. I think she's downstairs in the classroom. And when I asked this question, she put her hand up and she started crying because of the experience that she had where she witnessed to another little girl at her school about Jesus and how this little girl, then her friend, wanted to learn about the Bible and got the Bible herself. And Zach's little daughter was just so overwhelmed with this influence that she has had on this other little person's life, So no, we cannot necessarily grade ourselves, accurately as a group, as a church. But I think the greater and more important question is about grading myself. For example, I like to brag about our TV and radio and how great we are doing, and all of that is good and fine. And maybe, you like to talk about something else. But how am I as a as a human being? How's Pastor Gordon, how's his grade outside of the radio and TV and preaching here? What would I grade myself on how I relate to people outside of those things? You see, when I meet my neighbors, when I go to the store, when I deal with people in the hospital visitations, sometimes nurses, doctors who are not Christian, when I deal with people in general, is Jesus at the top of my list? Are people at the top of my list? Am I concerned with them? Or do I just think, I just need to do a good radio program? You know what I'm saying? And that sometimes we just think, okay, we're just going to do a big meetings and that's going to be it. But how do you grade yourself on your personal relationships with people who need Jesus? Cheryl, you want to say?
I'm not going to grade this church on an A through an F.
Okay.
I'm going to grade this church on who we are and why we're here. And again, that is to preach the gospel message, to bring it to all of those who we know, whether it's family, in the workplace, friends, the needy on the street. I think we have a wonderful street beat ministry that's going on that we're in outreach to. But my concern is, and it goes back to something that I picked up from Rich, in how back in the old days, people were on fire for God. I believe the church is going through Laodicea, and God said, I don't want a lukewarm church. I either want you on fire for me or be cold. At least I can deal with you and you've got room to go in either one of the directions. But Laodicea is just sitting back and being comfortable in who you are, where you're going, what you're doing, and we're not out there spreading the gospel message. And we are, I believe, we are living in the beginning of it. End times. The gospel's got to be preached throughout the world, and we know where the world is today. And it's just like you said, the church, the people are becoming more unfriendly, and they're not showing love. But it's not only love that we have to share. We have to be able to have forgiveness in our hearts. If you're going to love, you have to be able to forgive. And
Thank
I
you.
just pray for the church that we can love, forgive, and preach the gospel message to whomever, wherever we are.
Thank you for that. All of these points and all of these thoughts lead back to the same idea that as individual followers of Jesus, we have to take time to show interest in other people. That's basically what it boils down to. We may not everybody may have a PhD in theology, but we all have the ability to take time to show a little bit of interest in other people. And when we start doing that, that's when God opens the doors. And that's when the Holy Spirit comes into hearts. And that's when God can work with people. But if we don't do that, if we shut ourselves off from our neighbors, from our friends, from people in the community, then how the heck is God going to work through that? It's impossible for God then to do something with us, So I get, there is a guy that does this whole, there is a website, I forget his name, I'm going to send you an email about it. But he has this whole deal on tiny habits, it's called. How to make small habits in your life, that can change your life completely. So I would like to urge everybody, when you get up in the morning, after you get up, after you brush your teeth, before you go and have breakfast, just say a quick little prayer, short prayer, 10 seconds. Lord, put me in touch with somebody today who needs you. That's all. One little habit. That one little habit can change the whole trajectory of where we as a people are going. You see, because if everybody prays that, and then if you keep your eyes and ears open throughout the day, my goodness, the experiences you're going to have. And a lot of people already do that. A lot of people in this church already have those kinds of experiences. So I want to take time, and I told Milos, I want to take time on Sabbath to share some of those. To share a little bit of what we are doing out there and the kind of people that we are meeting and how the Lord is working in their lives. And as a matter of fact, if anybody has a short experience like that and would like to share with us today, I would like to take a few minutes when we go through the rest of this and give you a time to kind of put that together in your own mind. But I'd like to hear from you if you have that. Like I told you about Jay, and many others. So, interpersonal understanding, team self-evaluation, organizational understanding. I think we understand our organization pretty good here at the Arvada Church. We are Arvada Church, but we have 7 churches under our umbrella. And they're all trying to do the same thing, tell people about Jesus, you see. And then 3 keys at the church level to help people find Jesus. Number 1, trust among members. Do we trust each other? We may be of different background, but do we trust each other when it comes to telling others about Jesus? Do I trust you that you're going to represent Jesus in a way that's loving and forgiving, just like Cheryl says? You see, do we have a sense of our group identity here? I think we do. I think our Arvada Adventist Church has a sense of a group, sense of a team, sense of what we are trying to do in the community, in Denver, all over the world, as a matter of fact, with preaching of the gospel, And then a sense of group efficiency. And this is the sense of group efficiency, that I want to hear of more. I want to hear from you. I want to hear, what are you doing out there? What have you done out there to help somebody come a little bit closer to Jesus? That's what I want to hear. Yes, we have a hand right there. Perfect timing, Tina.
Okay. I like to share something. For the last 11 years, I work in an office that I have different coworkers, and there were some that came to me and said, you always have a smile on your face. No matter what's going on. Some days they could tell I was hurting, but I had a smile on my face. So I told them, Jesus gave it to me. And I encouraged some of my coworkers to read the Bible every day. So slowly, one day I come in and one lady tells me, I'm reading my Bible. I said, great, how is it going? I'm learning some things, that's where it stayed. The next lady said, I read my Bible every morning. And I said, great. And then I had the opportunity to give some speeches about different topics. So I shared about what Jesus has done in my life. Now, just going fast, all this time, I always make friends with everyone, a smile or encouraging word. A lot of days I didn't feel like it, but I'd say, Lord, help me today, So a week ago, I retired, and there were so many people that came to the retirement party, and I had supervisors. I had, even, what do you call them? Amy Trujillo. A director. I had a couple directors came and some supervisors, and when they started talking to me, my director had tears in her face, and she said, thank you for what you have encouraged us so much because of your speeches that you have given, and it's an experience of the spiritual part of your life. It has touched my heart so much. They had tears rolling, and I was like, Lord, I never knew that so many people were touched by these different speeches that I've given on what Jesus has done for me. But there are days that I didn't feel like sharing, things,
Sure.
And I would just pray. I said, Lord, help me to share your words, your story, not mine. And that's what I did. So I had so many people that were crying, that had tears, and they're like, may God bless you. One lady told me, I never believed in Jesus. I just believed that something supernatural was up there, but that was it. But because of you, I have come to learn about Jesus. And so I told my husband, I said, we don't know every day how we're touching people for Jesus. We have to start with Jesus. First thing and end every day with Jesus.
We are definitely affecting people every day.
Every day.
The question is, are we affecting them for God or are we affecting them in a negative
That's
way?
right. That's right.
Thank you, Tina. Wonderful. We got one more up here.
Good morning, everybody. We're in neighborhood watch in my house. There are like 2 blocks that we are getting together in meetings, inviting the police officer and keep eye in our houses from, all our neighbors and everybody. So it was a small house that they were selling, and they sold it to a lady that she lives with her son and a daughter. And she started to build a fence. And she went a little bit over the other neighbor. And the other neighbor got mad, went with her, and she was like, what are you doing? So the next meeting, it was in my house. And nobody said hi to her because, they had a little, and nobody knew the new neighbor. So one day I was passing by and I said, oh my goodness, the meeting is in my house and I need to meet a new neighbor and say hi. And, if she needs something, that we're in a neighborhood watch, even if she's new. So I stop and I say hi, and it was a very nice, to say hi and everybody, and she's from Chihuahua, from where I am.
Nice.
So, yeah, and I told her, everybody's talking about you, that you went over the little bit from the neighbor's fence, and she said, yes, I am feeling so sorry and so nervous that everybody don't say hi to me just because, and everybody, I can see you guys get along very well, and, well, they're not saying any hi to me or something. So I invite her for the meeting and everything in my house. She didn't show up because she was but I talked to all the neighbors, my friends, about her. She was a nice friend and good neighbor and everybody. So now everybody passes and say hi to her, and they stop to see if she needs something. And what it took, it was just, to say hi to her, and we're there to help each other. And if she needs something, we've been living, most of our neighbors, of my neighbors, we've been living there for 10, 15 years. I've been living there for 27 years.
Yeah.
And so she was surprised that no wonder we get along, and next meeting she will attend to the meeting and say hi. And it just takes a little, maybe love to say hi to somebody.
Show a little interest in people.
Yes, and I think we don't have to grade the church or what. I think we need to just work harder.
Amen.
Yes, work harder and help, because we're not like you or Milos or the ones, you guys have to work and just come and listen to the sermon or whatever. If next Saturday we put an act, what you're saying and you're talking about, maybe we can fill this church for next Saturday and invite just one friend from each of us, and bring one friend from next Saturday. It will be nice, and that means we're listening to you. And Jesus, it's the more important thing.
We don't
put in
even
us.
realize the impact that we have on people around us.
Yeah.
And, when Jesus said that the love has grown cold, it's so true, that if you go out there and show a little bit of love to people, it's going to have such a tremendous positive effect on their life, more than anything else that you can do. Because the world is starving for that love. People are starving for a little bit of attention, for somebody to just say hello to them,
And one more thing, it was very nice because a neighbor showed up, and he was mad, the first time because she went over. In my house, they built a fence, and they built the driveway. And after that, she sent somebody to build the fence. So there's no way that she couldn't build the fence on her side. And I told her, it's okay, build the fence in my side. And I told him, look, they build the fence in my side because we get along with my neighbor and I love her, no problem. And he say, it won't be any problem with me either because you showed me the fence, you let her, and I will be a friend of her.
Amen. Thank you. We got one more in the back right there.
I am not much of a public speaker, so I get a little nervous, but it's funny you brought this up. It's not what I did for someone, it's what someone did for me recently. So I'm a nurse, and I work in a very busy hospital. And recently I had 2 patients. I had a rapid response in the morning, so I was very busy, and we got this new admit. And this lady came in for, she's being abused at a nursing home, and she's probably in her 90s, and I was really busy. I had lots of rapids. I don't know if you guys know what that is. That means where we call the entire ICU crit care team, so I had 2 of those. She had just gotten up to the floor, and she was covered in stool and urine, and I was super busy, and I didn't have time. I took a deep breath, I went into her room, I was really stressed out, and I cleaned her whole body up. Me and another CNA did. And I medicated her for pain, and she didn't say a word to us. I sat her up, we fed her breakfast. I didn't have time, but I made the time. And I was getting ready to leave. We braided her hair, got all the stool out of it. And she said, and mind you, I was about to retire nursing because I see a lot of death, dying, and suffering. And my mom told me not to quit. She said, Mija, don't quit. You know, you worked really hard in school. And this lady, as we left, she grabbed my hand and said, thank you very much. She goes, God bless you, and I'm praying for you. She goes, you're in the right profession. And I didn't quit. So I'm still a nurse, but.
Amen. All right. One more up here, Sean. What a powerful testimony that was. Thank you. Right here, Veronica.
Happy Sabbath, everybody. Well, just wanted to share yesterday during our school training, they asked us to write our favorite place and our happy place and describe to the staff. There's 70 of us, including myself. So the first thing that I thought was Arvada Church before my home or before anything else. And I had to describe why that was my favorite, one of my favorite places or happiest places. And all I could think was the people. The people here are so, they give you genuine love. They give us encouraging words and support when we need them. Pastor Gordon, I know without a doubt you're always there for each and every one of us. I mean, it's an amazing place. So the teachers and the principal, her being a Christian, I mean, everybody wrote down their home, a lake, their couch, a craft room. But, you know, I had to say, well, you know, church is probably one of the best healing places there is for you. And it's because the Spirit of God is in each and every one of us, and I think we're doing a pretty good job as individuals. I mean, we all could be on the honor roll list because we love Jesus and we all want to serve Him.
Amen.
So, yeah, that was my response yesterday to the training. And
I
it was
like
amazing.
that.
Yes.
By the way, and I'm going to put the gentleman who gave us a D-, I'm going to put him on the spot. He actually told me that the reason that he and his wife haven't moved out of this city and go live somewhere else is because of this church.
Thank God. Amen.
So maybe a D- goes up, Richard, to a C+. Okay, one more.
In Richard's defense, he did say by comparison to the early
Yes,
church.
that's a pretty high.
Very high
That's
standard.
a very high standard. Thank you. But we got to aim for the high standards, right? We got to. Is there anybody else that wants to share? I hope we got to know each other a little better. If you're new, if you're visiting, welcome. If you want to learn more about the church, there is cards out there. Fill your name. If you want to be on the email list, we send a couple of emails a week. Put it on the card, drop it into a box, connect with me, connect with Milos, We'd like you to be a part of this church and get involved with this church family. And let's bring this message of Jesus to our community together as best as we can. That would be my message for today. Thank you all. I love you.